Alright guys, we're going to talk in this video about your 6K and 7A notes on the decline of the Western Roman Empire and on the rise of the Byzantines. So there are a lot of factors in the decline of the Western Roman Empire, the first of which is geographic size. As we have said before guys, the Roman Empire is massive. All the Mediterranean basin, all of modern-day France, portions of modern-day Germany, most of the Middle East, as far away as Britain. It's extremely hard to administrate and defend that large of an empire. You need a lot of different armies, and then communicating across such vast areas is incredibly challenging. So over time, this is going to begin to wear the empire down a little bit. And because we're trying to defend so much territory, the cost of defense is high. It's expensive to manage an army. And what the Romans do, and they make a mistake here, is we get a situation where we have a devaluation of their currency again. Now, we've talked about this in this unit before, and the reason we said it then was we had a flood of gold and riches, which led to it not being as valuable. Well, here in this case, the other way we get a devaluation of Roman currency is they just printed more money. And when you print more money, it becomes less rare. So the Romans were worried about paying for the cost of defense, so their answer was to print more money. So we have inflation, the currency loses its value. The other thing that we start having to do is, because we have a large military, we can't possibly fill that army with entirely Romans. We're going to have to bring in mercenaries or outsiders, people who they're not so loyal to Rome where it feels like when they're fighting, they're defending their homeland. Someone who's fighting to defend their homeland or their people or their way of life is going to be extremely motivated. They're going to be willing to lay down their life. They're going to go above and beyond. Whereas someone who's fighting for a paycheck, when the going gets tough, they're going to tend to crumble. So that's our third factor. Next one, we have a case of moral decay. They lost their faith in Rome and the family. So we had said one of the reasons the Pax Romana was such an important period is that people put their faith back in their families. They started focusing on family life and what was good for the family. Well, here, they take it away from the Roman Emperor, and by Rome, I mean the Emperor. And then they put the faith in to the Christian church. So they've taken their interest, their focus, their time away from following the emperor's orders and doing what's best for the empire and worrying about their family and how their family is going to succeed. And they've taken it and they've put that faith into focusing on their salvation, on Christianity. And while, yes, that will obviously, for those of you who are Christian, that will still put some emphasis on family. But some of those things that were reasons the empire was so great during the Pax Romana shift away as a result of the church. We're going to have civil conflict and weak administration. From the time when Christianity is legalized until the end of the Western Roman Empire in 476, so in about a period of 160 years, we're going to have nearly 80 emperors. They're averaging about 2 years a pop. I mean, they're not staying in office for long. They're not holding power. And when they are holding power, they're not worried about the people of Rome or making Rome better. They're just worried about staying in power. So we have a lot of turnover in leadership, a lot of weak administration, not a lot of help for the people. And then finally, the final nail that's going to be in the coffin here is attacks on the borders, specifically from Germanic tribes. We had the expression that all roads lead to Rome. Well, the Romans during the Pax Romana built those wonderful paved roads that allowed trade to accelerate. The problem is, while trade moves faster on roads, armies move pretty fast on roads too. So all these roads leading to Rome are going to eventually lead to a series of invasions by numerous different Germanic tribes from those areas of Germany that the Romans never conquered, and eventually these tribes are going to conquer the Western Roman Empire and cause the fall. A little jokey thing here, but this is an example of all of the different invasions. They start during what is known as the Pax Romana. But as you can see, guys, we have numerous ones: the Angles and the Saxons into Britain, the Franks into France. We've got the Vandals spreading all throughout, the Goths, the Visigoths, 77 different types of Goths, the Huns. All of these different groups are going to attack the Roman Empire. Okay? And eventually it's going to be the Visigoths that are able to finish off the western side of the empire. So now for the division and the fall of the empire. Remember, we talked about Constantine as being significant because he legalized Christianity in the year 313, but the other thing that he does is he actually moves the capital from Rome to the city of Byzantium and renames it Constantinople. So he's moved the capital east, and we'll get back to why he moved it east here in a little bit. So the empire ends up divided when he moves it east, or officially it divides later, but the empire divides, and we end up having two emperors, an eastern and a western. East and west. The Western Roman Empire is going to survive until the year 476. It ceases to have a Roman emperor, and that's the polite way of saying killed by the Visigoths. The emperor was captured by the Visigoths and was killed, and with no one left in power, the Pope assumes the seat of power in the city of Rome, and Rome, as an empire in the West, crumbles at that point in time. In the East, we're going to have the Eastern Roman Empire surviving. It's going to become known as a different name. It's going to become known as the Byzantine Empire, and it's actually going to last until 1453. So the Byzantine Empire in the East, centered on Byzantium, is eventually going to survive. So here is the division. It was Diocletian who divided the empire. Pardon me. And just so you can see, so the West falls in 476. The East becomes known as something else. And that's where your 6K notes wrap, and we move on to 7A. And we're going to talk real quickly about the geography of the Byzantine Empire. As we have said before, and this is going to be a quick rehash here, as the Roman Empire declines, Constantine moves the capital to the city of Byzantium, renames it Constantinople. Constantinople is going to become the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire when the empire is divided. The Western Roman Empire, as we've said, is going to fall to invading tribes. The Eastern Roman Empire begins the transition. A new culture is going to emerge. It's going to blend the Greek and Roman worlds and give birth to a new Rome. The Byzantines themselves don't give us many cultural influences, many things culturally that have impacted us, like the Romans had the concept of innocent till proven guilty. The Greeks, the idea of this weird thing called democracy. All of these advances in society and culture that occur during the Greek and Roman Empire, the Byzantines don't actually really add much to that. There are a couple of things architecturally we'll talk about later, but nothing as major as the advances in the Greeks and the Romans. But what the Byzantines do, and the reason they are significant, is they are one of what we'll talk about three different ways, or three different places that preserve Greek and Roman advances. So all of those advances that occurred by the Greeks, the Romans, the Hellenistic ages under Alexander, all of those things are going to get preserved by the Byzantines. That's why they're significant. So they're not going to get preserved in the West. We'll talk about that later, but that's the big thing you need to remember here. All right, moving on. Why Constantinople? Originally, when Constantine moved it to Constantinople, is the eastern part of the empire was unguarded and susceptible to invasion from people like Persia. We already talked about one of the reasons the Roman Empire falls is because of the vast amount of distances that they have to communicate across. Well, Constantine felt that by moving the capital east, he would be able to protect better from attack from the east. What he doesn't know is that the real threat is from the Huns, the Goths, and the Visigoths, and the Vandals to the west, these Germanic tribes that decimate Western Roman Empire. So moving the capital to the east actually is going to protect the eastern part of the empire, and they're going to get left alone by the Germanic tribes. The other thing is that Constantinople is on a peninsula, which is going to enable it to be easily fortified against attack. Guys, remember, peninsulas are bodies, or they're landforms, land masses that are surrounded on three sides by water. So a peninsula, theoretically, you only need to build walls on one side. Now, the catch to all of that, obviously, is, and this was brought up in some of the classes, is if you have big white sandy long beaches like we have on the Atlantic coast here, like if you guys think of Normandy, the site of the D-Day invasions, if you have big long beaches, can't you just attack from there? Well, Constantinople's not only on a peninsula, it's on a peninsula with rock wall cliffs. So they don't have to worry so much about defending those sides. It's very hard to scale them. Not impossible, but just challenging to do in large numbers. The other thing is that Constantinople is located at a crossroads of trade in the region. It's a hub for the Silk Road. If you guys remember, the Silk Road is that road that brings goods west from China, from India, into Persia, and eventually for goods to pass into Europe, they're going to have to either hop in the Mediterranean and sail across it, or if they're going over land, they've got to cross through Constantinople. So we've got goods, merchants, and money from all corners of the Eastern Hemisphere flowing into the city of Constantinople. This is going to provide the new empire with resources that it's going to use to grow and develop. It's also going to make it incredibly rich early on. So as you guys can see with where Constantinople is, if we've got the Silk Road coming here to get to Europe, it's got to go through Constantinople. The other thing about the defense is, as you can see, Constantinople's on this peninsula here. You've got the Black Sea. This is the Bosporus Strait. Let's go ahead and label that for you. This one's the Dardanelles. And because of where Constantinople is located and the shape of the land there, really the only way to attack the city of Byzantium is from this direction. Makes it harder to attack. Not impossible. Eventually, don't get me wrong, Constantinople is going to get overrun, but it takes a while. Constantinople is so instrumental in the success of the Byzantine Empire that it's going to remain the capital of the Byzantines until it's finally conquered by the Turks. I said earlier, 1453 CE is when the Turks will finally conquer the city of Constantinople and is marked as the end of the Byzantine Empire. That's also going to be the rise of the Ottoman Empire, which is going to last right up to World War I. So there is actually, considering this region of the world is incredibly unstable right now, there is actually a reasonable amount of stability there, because you trace back to the Romans, starting from about the year 200, or from about the year 0. We'll go from the year 0. From the year 0, the Romans control the Eastern Roman Empire. Then for about 500 years, then for about 1,000 years, you've got the Byzantines controlling it, and then for about another 400, you've got the Ottomans. Very stable in that part of the world. Constantinople is going to play a pivotal role in the preservation of Greek and Roman cultures. This is the most important thing you have to remember out of this unit. And then just for geography's sake, if you're ever looking for Constantinople on the map right now, you won't find it. The city has a new name, which the Turks gave it. It's the name of Istanbul. And that's going to be all, guys.